For 30 years, strategy game players have been reckoning with the harsh reality that a computer might be able to play better games than them. Beginning in the 1997 match with Kasparov vs. Deep Blue and ending with Lee Sedol vs. AlphaGo, AI inched ahead of human performance year by year, culminating in total victory. I love that tension. The open question that floats in the air with every game: can humanity win? Every victory and every defeat carries enormous weight. It's the heart of my novel, The Human Countermove: strategy games and the fight against a cognitively superior enemy. The challenge with writing a strategy book is creating strategies that feel authentic and clever, the kind of ideas that are convincingly grandmaster in skill, but understandable to the general public. In order to achieve that, I had to learn from the best. Kasparov vs. Deep Blue is the seed at the center of my book, the tipping point for humanity, the moment we realized computers could outthink people. Deep Blue won 3.5 to 2.5. But it was a rematch. In 1996, Kasparov won 4-2. Those two matches record the exact year engineering overtook training. My favorite moment from the 1997 match comes in Game 2, when Kasparov accused the Deep Blue team of cheating by having a grandmaster help with the moves. Even a computer can get illegal assistance from time to time, it seems. But it's the conflict of the moment that really captures me. On the one hand, we want to believe a person can outperform a computer. On the other, what an incredible feat it is to reproduce the mind of a genius with a little bit of code and some training. Caught in between, the audience cheers both sides: athletic feat and human ingenuity. Kasparov has a list of mistakes he regrets about the match. Moments that he could have snatched a draw from a defeat, a victory from a stalemate. The thing is, if he had won, all it would have done is stall the inevitable. Instead of discussing the 1997 Kasparov vs. Deep Blue match, we'd be discussing the 1998 Kasparov vs. Deep Blue match. It's all of this I try to capture in my book. The tension, the conflict, the regret, and the determination to beat the unbeatable. Now, when chess engines and AI models face off against one another, they are a tier beyond our best players, a mentor for grandmasters like Magnus Carlsen, and something beyond the rest of our comprehension. This is a lighter game. The opera game was played by Paul Morphy and the Duke of Brunswick. It's one I draw inspiration from in my novel, not as a strategic tool, but as a piece of culture. The opera game represents the beginning of a chess student's education, one of the very first games a novice will be introduced to. Paul Morphy makes strong, understandable decisions against a much weaker opponent and rapidly gains the advantage. But more importantly, the story is fun to tell. Who doesn't like a game played from the Duke's box in the middle of an opera? In my book, the protagonist Zook does a lot of teaching on the side, as many professional strategy game players find themselves doing. When an opportunity to lecture to a big audience comes around, he realizes how inexperienced his listeners are. He has to abandon the esoteric analysis he had prepared and leans on a tried and true classic with a fun story. Lee Sedol vs. AlphaGo ended in a 1-4 result. For those of us that had been tracking the development of computers since Deep Blue's game against Kasparov, seeing AlphaGo take its victory wasn't a surprise. Go is a much more computationally difficult game than chess, but Moore's Law is a powerful force. But did you notice the scoreboard? Lee Sedol won Game 4. That was an upset. Against Google's best engineers and decades of neural networking and algorithmic design, a human being managed to snatch victory. And it all came from a single move. Move 78. That move has been gone over, analyzed, and studied over the years. It's believed that Move 78 pushed the game into a uniquely complicated position. a position AlphaGo couldn't calculate. A blind spot in the computer's play that drew out blunder after blunder. Lee Sedol wasn't just a grandmaster, he was a quality assurance tester, identifying where AlphaGo was weak and pushing it further and further down that path until its behavior was no longer satisfactory. Basically, Lee Sedol found a bug, even when it seemed impossible. Through sheer deep understanding, a person beat the unbeatable. Since Kasparov vs. Deep Blue, 1,000 chess engines have burst onto the scene. Anyone willing to run a bit of code on their computer and risk getting banned can play like a grandmaster. To beat such unsavory characters, grandmasters have had to develop a special set of tools. First and foremost is time. Consider two games. One gives players an hour to make all of their moves, the other gives players a minute to make their turns. The first game is deeply thought out, with strong moves that remove all chances of counterplay. The second game is superficial, moves born more out of training than thought. In tight time controls, using a chess engine becomes a liability. The grandmaster can play from their subconscious. The cheater is stuck waiting for the perfect answer from a machine, which almost always takes the same amount of time, something like 15 seconds. Thus we meet the hippo. The hippo slows the game down to a crawl. Pieces only move forward a square or two, then build a nearly impenetrable fortress. As the opponent approaches, the grandmaster makes every effort to slow the position, to close it down, keeping the number of moves to a minimum. With each move, the cheater loses a little more time, and the walls close in a little tighter around them. As their time dwindles, the cheater is forced to throw in a few of their own moves. These usually turn out to be of a significantly poorer quality than what a chess engine can put out. Once the grandmaster has stripped the cheater of their chess engine, they unravel all the complexities of the hippo and go for the kill. Once again, complexity and time as weapons to beat an overthinking machine. I love real-time strategy games. The feeling of making a plan, facing the hard truths of reality, making adjustments, and turning the battle in your favor is exhilarating. And they're so different from a game like chess or Go. In chess and Go, the entire shape of the board is transformed with a single move. In real-time strategy games like StarCraft, you're making a new move every second. And it's only when you add up all those little decisions along the way that you end up with a result. And in games like that, there's one particular battle result that everyone is chasing. In the Second Punic Wars, Hannibal faced a much larger force and turned the battle completely in his favor, defeating the Romans. The trick? Draw the enemy in, encircle them, then tighten the trap. The game in my book, Line, isn't like chess or Go. It's a little more practical in nature. In theory, the game is playable on a field. Not that most people would enjoy the feeling of being shot by a rubber bag. Because of the practical realities of squadrons facing off against one another, tactics like chess's fork and pin don't really translate. But what does translate is the greatest military trap of all time. Let your enemy overextend themselves, wait for the right moment, and strike. There are plenty of other strategy games I no doubt pulled inspiration from. Things like Total War games, role-playing games, XCOM, Risk, but chess was my guiding star. It's funny, once you open your mind to a question like, how does a person beat an AI in strategy, you realize how many other people already pondered the same question. AIs have been kicking mankind's collective butt for 30 years. Maybe it's nearly impossible to imagine a person turning it around on them. But nearly impossible is still possible. It only takes the right person and the right techniques. Even when the robot brains outthink us on every front, we can still squeak out a victory every now and then. You can consider my protagonist Zook Solensen the right person with the right techniques, and the human countermove is my hypothetical scenario. My new book, The Human Countermove, is now available on Amazon. Thanks for watching.